So as I told you before, when we switch branches, Git resets our working directory to the snapshot stored in the last commit of the target branch. Now, if you have local changes in our working directory that we haven't committed yet, these changes could get lost. In these situations, Git doesn't allow us to switch branches. Let me show you how this happens and what you should do about it. So in the previous lesson, we made some changes in audience.txt in our bug fix branch. Now, currently we're on the master branch. So let's open audience.txt and make some other kind of changes. So here I'm going to add an asterisk just to indicate a change. Save. Back in the terminal. Our working directory is dirty because we have some local changes we haven't committed yet. So let's say we're in the middle of something, and then we have to quickly switch to the bug fix branch. If we type git switch bugfix/signup form, we get an error saying your local changes to the following files would be overwritten by checkout. Please commit your changes or stash them before you switch branches. Now, in this case, I don't want to commit the changes because I'm not done yet. So in situations like this, we should stash our changes. Stashing something means storing it in a safe place. So we're going to store this somewhere in our Git repository, but this is not going to be part of our history. Let me show you how this works. So we type git stash push -m and give it a message. With this message, we can tell what these changes are all about. Let's say new tax rules. So I was working on the new tax rules, and then I had to quickly switch to the bug fix branch, right? So saved working directory and index date on master, and here's the message. Now, as you can see over here, we have one stash. Just remember, by default, new untracked files are not included in your stash. So as an example, if I create a new file here, let's echo hello to new file.txt. Now let's run a short status. So we have a new file. If I stash the changes, this new untracked file is not going to be included in the stash by default. To include it, we have to use the all option. So we say git stash push -all or just -a, then -m, or we can combine these two options into a single option. Now we give it a message, my new stash. Of course, the message should be something more meaningful. So now we have two stashes. You can see that over here. To view our stashes, we type git stash list. So we have two stashes. Each stash has a unique identifier. Stash at, in curly braces, we have an index. Now, as you can see, our working directory is clean. So we can switch to the bug fix branch, no problem. We can do our work here. When we're done, we get back to the master. At this point, we want to apply the changes from one of our stashes to our working directory. But before doing so, we want to look at those changes to see what lines of code have been modified. So we type git stash show. And here we type the name of the stash, like stash at curly braces 1. Now we can make this shorter by using just the sequence number. Now we know that in stash number 1, one file has been changed, that is audience.txt. Here we have two changes, one insertion and one deletion. So we can go ahead and apply this stash on our working directory. So git stash apply 1. The changes are applied to our working directory, beautiful. Now, when we're done with this stash, we want to remove it to clean things up. So we can type git stash drop 1. That stash is removed. Let's look at our stash list one more time. We have one more stash. Let's say we don't need this anymore. So we can type git stash drop 0. Or to remove all stashes, we can type git stash clear. All our stashes are gone.